Michael Shapiro.
Hey, Coach. Obviously, record-wise, it was a bit of a tumultuous season. But when you look back at your first year, is there anything you're necessarily proud of in terms of your performance as a coach?
Oh, yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot I'm proud of. There is first of all, like the getting through it and the growth of the players individually, the kind of experiences that I went through that I'll learn and grow from, the relationships that I built with not just the players, but Rafael and Tillman and our performance team and my assistant coaches, to come out of the season that we had, and regardless of the wins and losses and still be super excited, super hopeful for the future is not very often in this league. It doesn't happen very often in this league when you lose as much as we did this season and still be super optimistic about what we have coming ahead is a very good feeling. So yeah, there's a lot positive that I'm taking from this season. There's negative as well. I mean, the losing, and I'm always going to be self-critical about things I could have done better. But overall, yeah, I'm just excited about the group. I'm excited about the organization, and I'm excited about the future.
Appreciate it, Coach.
Yep.
Adam Spolin.
Rafael, with the production that you got from Christian playing so much towards the end of the year, does that kind of change the way that you feel like you can build the roster around him?
I don't know if it changes it. I'd say it confirms the hope we had that he's a multi-positional player and a really skilled basketball player. We kind of knew those things, but it's confirmation that you're not at all pigeonholed with him, and that he can be a productive player. He's just a good basketball player. So he plays both ends. He plays inside out. He's a walking bucket. So Christian can play. So, I guess piggybacking off what Coach said, for sure one of the really encouraging things this year was how well Christian played.
Simon Ali.
Rafael, I know at this point this upcoming pick swap kind of is what it is, but how much does your long-term planning change based on whether or not you keep that pick?
Sorry, can you repeat the question? I was scooting my chair over.
I know the pick swap kind of is what it is at this point, but how much does your planning change based on whether or not you keep that pick?
Presumably the player we pick will change pretty dramatically depending upon where we end up. I think that's the case for everybody in the NBA who's in the lottery. But otherwise not really. We're trying to gather really, really talented basketball players and put them together and grow them, and kind of that process started for us this year, and we'll continue it next year. So I think obviously the guy we pick will probably be different depending upon what pick we're at. But other than that, I think we're pretty locked into a strategy of really trying to grow a team that can win a championship.
Mark Berman.
Rafael, along those lines, what could you say? Tell us, or generally speaking, are some of your priorities for this offseason?
Get a more talented group that Stephen can win a championship with. I don't think it makes sense to predetermine, especially not in May, who we're going to draft in July and who we're going to try and pursue in free agency in August. I think I think that we will be flexible, adaptable, and aggressive to try and find the most talented guys we can find. And I guess getting back to the first question I was asked, I think that it definitely is helpful that we have guys who, we presume will be here for a while, like Christian, and Scoot and JT, and KJ and Eric, and John. All these guys are like versatile, and they can defend multiple positions, and they can both shoot and attack closeouts. And so we can, we're not pigeonholed into what types of players I think we bring in. And so the result is we want really, really talented guys, so that we can be as competitive as quickly as possible.
Jonathan Fagan.
You mentioned quite a few young guys. You've got 3 first-round picks. Does it make sense in rebuilding to also have your 30-somethings along with the minutes you want to give to the 3 first-round picks, to the Kevin Martin Jr., KJ Martin, Kevin Porter Jr., and so on?
I mean, this is actually a good question for Coach a little bit, but my answer, and I'm going to answer it anyway, but for sure, yes. Like, you want people to build good habits, and you want people to learn from real pros. And so I definitely think that, Eric Gordon is like a consummate professional basketball player. So, like, how can it not be helpful to practice alongside him every day? Go watch Eric shoot. That's what shooting's supposed to look like, right? And so if you're not seeing it every day, how would you know? And so I know some teams have done like wholesale rebuilds where they just go extraordinarily young, but I think that's largely built around the premise that they're also trying to lose. And I've said this before. I think one of the advantages to the various moves we made this year is that we do have a lot of future draft picks that are unprotected, that aren't just ours. And so I think it gives us the luxury of trying to be competitive and grow our young guys and have 30-something guys. And the fact that they might help us win a game or 2 extra or 5 or 6 games extra is not something that we're worried about. Where I think sometimes when teams are rebuilding, they're very strategically trying not to win. And so we're trying to compete. We're not going to shortcut the process, and we're trying to win a championship ultimately. And there is a build to that, but that's what we're trying to do. Hold on just a second. We're dealing with something here.
We can't hear. Are we good to go?
Yeah.
Great. Cody Davis.
Hey, Mr. Stone, what is the process, and at the same time, what is the possibility of flipping some of these future draft picks that you guys have for a more established player, especially within this upcoming offseason?
I don't know. I think we're going to do what we think is the best thing for the group and the team every time. For sure draft picks are at least as valuable as trade assets as they are as picks. So I would never say we wouldn't trade any pick, let alone all our picks. That's one of the reasons we accumulate them, is because they're the currency of the NBA. But I don't. Yeah, sitting here right now, I have no idea whether that's going to make sense this offseason, and whether we would do something small or large or anything else. I at this time, there's just no way to know, and not something we would want to predetermine.
Brian Bearfield.
Where did your keen eye of being able to spot talent come from? Because you added some really good players to this roster this year.
I thank you. That's very kind. I hope you're as kind when we add a couple who don't work out quite as well. I think we're all an accumulation of our experiences. For the last few years, the Rockets haven't had draft picks, and one of the things that I've been very focused on for the last 5 or 6 years was how to bring in very talented players who could contribute to kind of at the time an elite winning team without a draft pick. And so we, like even like a guy like Daniel House who's on our team is somebody that we as a group found several years ago and is very impactful for us and is still a good contributing member of the team. So I think that it's, practice makes perfect or whatever. So I have a lot of experience, as does our group, on trying to find guys and really paying attention to people that we can think can be successful, who maybe aren't on the typical path. And that's something we've had to be good at for the last few years. And it's been more challenging in the past to find opportunity for those guys to play than it was this year. I mean, one of the things this year was we were just so challenged with injuries that everybody who could walk got an opportunity to play. And that's unusual in the NBA, and a credit to the guys we brought in that they were ready. They played really, really, really hard, and they gave themselves a chance. And I'm very proud of them and their effort. And I'm super proud of Coach Silas and the job he and his staff did with like no practice time and being able to put the guys in a position to have success. It's like that's real too. Like, like not trying to teach somebody, reinvent the wheel every time somebody comes in. Allowing them the freedom to play and to be successful is not something that every coach can do. And Coach Silas did a great job in that respect.
Jason Bristol.
Stephen, because there were so many guys that were added to this team, can you tell me what the process was like? Were you working with players that perhaps you had only seen on video, or going with guys that maybe the front office only gave you a little bit of a scouting report? Was that how it played out at times, or was it nothing like that?
No, it's very much like that.
We didn't have time for videos.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, we had guys who we brought in, and I would have to like YouTube videos on them, and Rafael would tell me who the guy was and basically what he could do, and then I'd watch, and then they'd play 30 minutes that night. It's just a crazy year. It's just crazy with the injuries that we had and the game after game after game with no practice, and using shoot-arounds to introduce guys to each other and introduce groups of guys to what we're doing on both ends of the floor. And the style of play that we have is a kind of easy way for guys to play to their strengths. And Rafael, as one of the earlier questions alluded to, did a great job of bringing guys in who could step in and play well and play hard, and kind of just push forward the culture that we're trying to put in place, as far as multi-positional guys who can do a lot of different things but play super hard and buy in and are very much about doing things the right way. So as hard as it was having X guy come in after X guy, it was good for us because we got to see these guys in against the best teams in the NBA as the last part of the season went through, and we were playing every great team in the NBA. We saw them fight and play and saw some good things and saw some things that we can build from. So yeah, it was like difficult as far as trying to get guys organized in that part. But overall, I think if you look at it, kind of, you take a step back and you just see how hard they played down the stretch. It was a good thing.
Thank you.
Mark Medina.
Hey, Mark Medina here, USA Today. Good to see you guys. I was wondering, what are your overall takeaways of John Wall this season with just how he's navigated a bunch of different things, the performances he had, helping the young guys, and the injuries, and what do you think that presence will mean moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, John was really good for us. I mean, think about where he came from, right? He was injured for 2 years and nobody knew if he was going to be able to even play at all. And he came in and he had success. He worked himself beyond the point that he probably should have, as far as the nagging injuries that he had were just based on him wanting to play more and nah, coach, leave me in. I'm good. Or okay, we have a back to back. I haven't been playing back to backs, but I'm playing this one because we got a chance to win. And those are the things that made John super impactful for our team, and just the amount of pride that I have based on what he did coming back from that injury is immeasurable, because we had a bunch of guys like that early in the season who were coming back from major injuries, but he worked himself back, all the way back to leading us to victories, to playing more minutes than he probably should have, to the point where, you know, his body kind of gave up on him at the end, and not to the point where he's not going to be able to come back next year and be great. But that's just who he is. He's going to just fight through and do whatever he can to make it good for the group.
You don't, just to add on, you don't know players really until you work with them. Like, you just don't. You might say hi, you might see them in a restaurant, but it's very hard to know anybody, right? Unless you spend real time with them, you get to know them. John's been like awesome. His IQ is through the roof, and he's just a good dude. And so I think for this group, he's been great, and for me, he's been great. And like, yeah, John's a really, really good guy. That's what I would say. And he, you know, and he does, and he's a hooper. John balls, right? So like, you know, he, you know, like, it was the plan to start the year, to Coach's point, was he wasn't going to play back to backs. And then like, I look up and I'm like, wait, he played last night, and this is a back to back, and he's just playing. And you know, and you can't help but love that about him. Like, so yeah, I think I do think coming back from where he came back from, he had a really successful season. And I think he's poised to be materially better next year. I know we talked to him, we met with him yesterday, and he's fired up. Like, he's already plotted it out. And again, I don't know if I'm going on, but like, his basketball IQ is so high. Like, John does get basketball. It's really fun just hanging out and talking hoops with him.
Kelly Eco.
This is for, you know, who wants to answer this, but do you think the development of guys like Tate, Martin, KPJ, do you think that was kind of accelerated because of the season that you guys had, and how much of that carries over to a normal year when there's practice time and there's no injuries or less injuries?
Go ahead. I'll talk about this.
Sure. No, for sure. Like, I mean, for like KJ, he's a guy who, I was super excited about KJ. We did a bunch of stuff on draft night to acquire him, but we didn't plan on him playing this year. Like, he was playing high school kids. And so the fact that he got, the way the year shook out, he got an opportunity to play not just like a little bit, but like, he played monster minutes down the stretch and was successful, like, was efficient. Like, that, those things don't happen with 19, 20-year-old guys. So I think it was absolutely great for him. Scoop's a guy who played in the NBA last year and was successful last year. And I think the big thing with him was just the positional change, which, you know, we got the opportunity to kind of try that out in the G League first, which I think he liked, and it fit him. And so he was able to do that with us. But Scoop was going to play when we made the decision to acquire him. We knew he was going to play a little bit. And I think, you know, Tate was a guy who was ready to play in the NBA. So he was going to play. For both Scoot and Tate, maybe not as much as they ended up playing, but for sure those guys were going to play. And I do think that there's no substitute for NBA basketball games. So they're all for all three of those guys. Their development should be, and I think will be accelerated by just the sheer number of reps they've gotten this year. I think overall that's a really good thing.
Terrence Harris.
Hey, this question, hey Rafael, how's it going, guys?
Good.
I want to ask you a specific question. When you look at this young core of players that you have, and you got a chance to watch them all season, when you look at them and you're starting to look at maybe who you may acquire either through the draft or free agency, what are the specific skill sets that you feel like you need to add to this group, to this young core of players that can help them excel?
Yeah, I mean, I just think we need more guys like them, and just we need talented basketball players. We need really good basketball players. We have some, and I think some of the guys we have a real opportunity to get better over the offseason. One thing that I was hoping we would get at the stretch, which we did not get, was I was hoping we would get enough health to really get a sense for what the team looked like intact, and we never got that. So, but it probably wouldn't have changed anything for me anyway, or for us collectively. We're just going to try and bring in the best guys we can, whether that's through free agency or the draft. I just think you find the best basketball players you can and make it fit. Like we have really, really versatile players. Like we've believed in that for a long time. That's kind of where small ball came from a couple of years ago. And so we have a lot of guys who play a lot of positions and do a lot of different things, including our larger players like Kelly and C. Wood can handle so we have multi-positional, multi-dimensional guys. And so one of the advantages of that is if you can find a good basketball player to play with them, they can work it out. They can play together. Good basketball players can play with each other. So that just is. And so I don't think we're pigeonholed into what type of player we find.
Ben DeBose.
Rafael, you guys have made no secret about the fact that many of your future draft assets might be for trade purposes rather than actually you guys making all of those picks. I'm sure there's some that hear that and they say that, well, it sounds good. They wonder just how attractive the franchise is to sort of the established marquee player tier coming off a bad year. How do you respond to that? What's your sales pitch, if you will, to people around the league for why this is a franchise where star players can and will win at a high level?
Because we can and have won at a high level for the last years. That's
fair.
And I would say, when I go around the NBA, nobody talks. I mean, part of this is because they're being nice to me. But no one says, you guys are horrible this year. They say, oh my God, I've never seen a team take injuries like you took this year. That's my sense from talking to others around the league, is I don't think there's a perception that there's something wrong with us at all. It's just, we just took brutal injuries. And I would say, we traded for Kelly at the trade deadline. And, I think he loved his time here. We certainly loved him, and I think he really enjoyed it here. I think the reality is that Houston's like an amazing city that is well known in the NBA. It's a destination city in the NBA, and I'm hopeful that people end up. I'm positive that everybody in the NBA likes Stephen, and I'm hopeful that people for the most part like me. And so I think that this is a really attractive destination. I think now, having said that, again, we're really committed to really building something that gives us a chance to win a championship. So we're not just packaging a bunch of picks to try and barely make the playoffs for a year or two. That's not the goal. We're really trying to build something sustainable and with players who can be good now and great later. That's for sure the goal. But I'm not actually concerned about people wanting to be here. But I'm confident that we're going to have people who really want to be here.
Adam Spolin.
Stephen, how do you feel you can best assist Rafael and his team during the draft and free agent process?
I'm just gonna be someone to bounce things off of, someone who will pay attention, someone who will be in as much of an expert on the guys who we're kind of talking about as possible. But I think, as you've seen, Rafael has a great eye for talent and what fits and all of those things. So my job is basically not to mess that up and allow him to, evaluate, pick guys who he thinks fits, and we are very aligned as far as how we see basketball. So yeah, I'll be involved, but like, he's done it already, right? Like, you see the guys that we've gotten. We got Christian Wood and Jae'Sean Tate and KJ Martin. Like, all these guys, Armani Brooks and Kyrie Thomas, like all these guys who nobody really kind of was on besides him, right? So, yeah, I'm just going to be there and listening and giving my opinion, but I just trust him. That's all.
Saman Ali.
Saman, you're muted. I don't know.
Okay, does that work?
There you go.
There you go.
Okay. Yeah, Steven, you've had 1 year under your belt with Kevin Porter Jr. and KJ Martin. What have you thought of their seasons individually, and where would you advise them to improve?
Yeah. So with Scoop, as Rafael said earlier, the position change was huge, and putting the ball in his hands and having him go down to the bubble and work with Mahmoud and work with the team and play a bunch of minutes at the point and explore his game and the strengths that he has that haven't necessarily been tapped into. That was like everything for him. And then coming to the team and the fact that we play a similar style to what he was doing in the bubble, and the fact that he knew when, as Rafael said, when he came back, we were going to play him and give him an opportunity to play to his strengths and learn and grow and all of those things. And he did a good job. And it's not an easy thing to come into an NBA team, especially midway through the season, but to be a point guard when you've never been a point guard in the NBA before, and to do it at the level that he did it is really just a good thing for him as well as the group. And the guys liked playing with him, and he made other guys better on the floor. I think you saw with his ball handling, he can get to where he wants to get to on the floor. With his passing and his size, he can find guys, and as evidenced by the Milwaukee game, he can score. He had 50. So that's definitely encouraged by kind of the growth and the path that he took from where he was at the beginning of the season to where he was yesterday when we were in our meeting. And he's great. KJ Martin, very similar, just from where he was at the beginning as a guy in training camp with the deer and headlights look, and was just trying to kind of make it through to playing 40 plus minutes in games and coming up with a highlight block every game and shooting threes as confidently as he was, and just the growth and improvement that he made in the bubble, and then coming back and establishing himself as someone who should be in the rotation. And that wasn't given to him at all. And both guys earned what they got, and they got more because of the injuries, obviously, but they've proven through hard work, through ups and downs, through the typical NBA stuff for a young guy, that they persevered and really kind of established themselves and gave themselves kind of a launching pad moving forward as far as their confidence and what they know will succeed in the NBA, but also what they know won't necessarily succeed for them. And those are two big ones, especially the part of what doesn't succeed.
We'll take 3 more. Jerome Solomon.
Yeah, well, it's not Rafael, and good morning, guys. But, I mean, historically, the move from the bottom to the top, as you alluded to several times, is rarely accomplished in short order. So with where you guys are and with all of the assets you have and draft picks, et cetera, coming up, how does your process, for lack of a better term, compare to the ones from the last 10, 15, 20 years that have taken forever and have never succeeded?
I hope to go quicker and succeed more. I think
keep hope alive. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, I think I think one thing is that some of the teams embarked on a conscious or semi-conscious or intentional or whatever design to their primary asset that they were banking on was being bad themselves to get high picks. And with the lottery system, just like we're looking at right now, that might take years, right? Like, because you may not hit the lottery ball. And so even if you're the worst team or one of the worst 3 or 4 teams, you might pick 5th or 6th or 7th or 8th. That's the way our game is set up. And so some teams, I think, have kind of intentionally tried to give themselves a long runway to hit lottery balls multiple times, and their primary asset was their own draft pick, which means that they had to kind of intentionally be bad for a while, or for years on end. I think, one of the results of the various transactions we've done is that we sit on a lot of picks that aren't our own. And so at least the possibility exists that we can, that those will end up being high picks. And so I think the result is that we feel a little, we're kind of abandoning the strategy of intentionally trying to be bad for 5 to 10 years or whatever it takes. We're not trying to do that. I think that's the biggest difference. We're trying to compete. We're going to be young. We're not trying to press it immediately, which I think has also been good. I think the teams that do that sometimes make quick mistakes because might bring in a free agent, pay him a lot of money that isn't kind of quite the guy just because that's the guy that's available in that year. And we're going to try and avoid those types of mistakes. We're not going to be perfect. Not every transaction is going to work out, whether because of fit or injury or whatever else. But we're going to do the best we can, and we're going to try and put a competitive product on the court quicker. And we're not worried that we need our draft pick to be as bad as possible or as low as possible in any given year, because we do have some other picks that we expect will come to us in the future.
Also, thanks a lot. To piggyback on that, I think this year was very much a function of the injuries and the other stuff. If we would have had our full group for the whole season, then we probably wouldn't be, talking about any of this, right? We'd be, we would have had our full group and we would have won more games and all of that stuff. So.
Yeah, I think, it's impossible to know where we end up. And we never got post trade deadline. We never got our full group even close to healthy, but we did, after kind of the initial series of transactions, we were still a really, really competitive team. But again, injuries hit, and we're trying to grow. And so we didn't react to injuries the way a top 1 team would have, which was toss in future picks to try and get somebody to hedge a month, right? We didn't do this, and by the way, I should give Stephen credit for perseverance and patience, because that's frustrating when you're the coach and your GM is like, good luck.
Just ride it out. Huh?
Yeah. So that was this year, and I think if we weren't willing to make changes this year when we really needed them, if we were willing to kind of play the long game, we'll do that in the future too. But our working expectation is not that we're going to be the most injured team in history every single year. We're going to bet against that and see where we can go.
Thanks a lot.
Adam Wexler.
Appreciate your time this morning. Stephen, you'd mentioned Mahmoud earlier on how much he helped with the development of some of your guys, along with him and Robbie and John and your coaching staff in general, Jeff, et cetera. Can you share some insight on how much they helped those young guys, both on and off the court, throughout the season, and maybe what their status is moving forward, these coaches?
Yeah, so I mean, they've all been super helpful. Mahmoud, the job that he did with the G League team was, I mean, under the circumstances where it was the bubble, first of all, and they had limited practice time, and as organized as he is, as positive as he is, but he's also like a very good tactician when it comes to, offense and getting the guys to play the right way. And that's what we needed for KP and for KJ when they went down there. So the job that he did with the G League team was like exactly what we needed at that time to set those guys up to play and play big minutes and to succeed when they came to us. So the job that he did was great. And John Lucas is the best at what he does. He's the best in the world at what he does as far as connecting with players, making them better, the detail part of an individual's game. He can look at somebody and just know what they need as far as their shot or their ball handling or whatever. But there's also the skill of getting to a player that not everybody has, and connecting and building trust and all of those things. And he is I have never seen anybody do it the way that he does, and it's so effective in that part of it. And for me, he was great. He's come into my office and tell it like it is, and that's what you need from your assistant coaches. And then, Will Weaver and Sagana Jop and Rick Higgins were great with the game plans and also watching film with players and connecting with those guys. And you mentioned Robbie, who does a great job with Luke, and he really worked with KJ Martin on his shot a bunch this season. And you can't deny the improvement of our individual players. You just can't. So yeah, I love my staff. I hope to have all of them back next season. And they should be definitely proud of the work that they've done with the group.
Last question, Jonathan Fagan.
Rafael, you sort of hinted at this a little bit, but you've got 9 or 10 guys under contract, depending on one of your decisions. 3 first-round picks, so you're up to 13 guys before you sign any of your own free agents or go out there. How does that impact your goals in free agency, what you want to get done, and how you want to use that mid-level exception?
We have some roster, I guess, positional stuff, but we have. I mean, it's super weird because you normally, when you have a team that had a record like ours, you can be like, the team has no talent, but we do have talented basketball players, and so we have guys that other teams want, and so there are things we can do if we need to create a roster spot, but also we want to just bring in good basketball players. They need to be even in mid-level. We only have one mid-level exception, so sometimes you divvy that up, but other times you just try and go find a single guy, and that would, that obviously that person could be impactful and helpful.
So which one is it for you?
I don't know yet. It's mid-May. I don't even know who's going to be a free agent. Guys are still extension eligible, and I just don't know. I think I'll promise you I think I've been good. We had more players play for us this year than anybody's ever had before. I promised I'd be aggressive. I promise I'll be aggressive, right? But in terms of the who, you just don't know. Scoot is a great example. He would have been really super high on my list of guys that I would have tried to get in a situation like this. But I had no concept that he would be available until a week before we got him. And so you just don't know. Again, I actually think it's a bit of a mistake to try and predetermine it. So I think we will do our homework on literally everyone. I promise you we'll be aggressive, and I promise we won't be outworked. We will do our homework on everyone, and then we'll try and make it work, and we'll do the best we can.
Who's going to the lottery?
I actually don't know that. Truly don't know that either. I haven't had the opportunity to talk to Tillman about that at all. But yeah, I hope it's not me. but yeah, I don't know.
Who's lucky?
Yeah, I would say probably not me at this point. It's not me. Based on our injuries this season, it's not me.
Thank you, gentlemen. We appreciate your time.